All right, welcome everyone. My name is Raj Sabharwal. I'm one of the owners of Glass Revolution Imports, and we have the privilege and honor of being the exclusive U.S. importer of Amrut Single Malt. So we're talking about Amrut today, which is an Indian single malt whiskey. Was first released in 2004. Amrut is based in Bangalore, India, and was established in 1948. They are still a family-owned distillery. Still are very proud of what they do. The founder, who passed away a number of years ago, always preached quality ahead of quantity, and so his son and son-in-law, who now are the managing directors of the business, still continue to uphold to that. As you can imagine, they are constantly approached by other parties interested in buying them out, and their attitude is, well, what are we going to do if we sell? So they have no interest in selling, and they continue to experiment and do a lot of different things. So just historically, like I said, Amrut started in 1948. The distillery was basically making neutral alcohol to use in their pharmaceutical firm, which they had. So they didn't actually start distilling alcohol until 51 or 52, when they were granted the southern branch of the Indian Army's contract to provide rum rations for the soldiers. So they started making rum and doing that. If you don't know, India is the largest producer of sugarcane in the world, and sugarcane actually came to the Caribbean from places like India, Indonesia, Sri Lanka. It's not Sugarcane is not indigenous to the Caribbean. Historically they've been making rum or rum derivatives in India going back to about 400 BC. There's a lot of history there. And I can talk about Amrut rums, but we're going to focus on the whiskeys. So in the 1970s, Amrut started making single malt to use in their higher end whiskey blends. Those of you who are familiar with Indian whiskey, and I'll use quotations for whiskey, most of what is sold in India as whiskey could not be called whiskey anywhere else in the world. That is because it is made from a neutral molasses spirit with some either imported foreign malt liquor from Ireland, Canada, Scotland, whatever added to it, or some grain whiskey or malt whiskey added to it. Unfortunately, when a lot of the European, mostly the Scottish companies started coming into India, seeing it as a market, they decided that they were going to produce lighter whiskeys. So they reduced the amount of malt that was in there to produce a lighter, more approachable whiskey, which, obviously people reacted to that because the prices were cheaper and they were able to get it. But Amrut was left with all these barrels of whiskey, single malt whiskey, and wondering what to do with it. They had Jim Swan came and met with them. They had other distillers from Scotland come up and visit them, and everyone said, whatever you're doing, keep doing. You're making a great product. And they've always stuck to making single malt whiskey, so they follow the Scottish Whiskey Association regulations. So all that goes into it is malted barley, yeast, and water. The barley comes from the north of India, either Punjab or Rajasthan, and comes down to Bangalore, where everything else is done. So first, let's drink, because everyone's probably thirsty. So the first one we're going to try is the classic single malt. Comes in a blue tin. This is not. I'm not a giant. These are not holding up a bottle. This is the mini bottles that we've had there. So this is 100% Indian barley, 100% malted Indian barley. And what makes Indian barley different from what is normally used in Scotland and other parts of the world, it's a 6-row barley rather than 2-row. So you're getting smaller granules, you're getting a lower yield because the granules are smaller, but you get a richer distillate that comes out of there. there's nothing added to it, no coloring, no flavor, and it is non-chill filtered.
What's the year on it?
Sorry?
What's the years? Is it 10-year, 12-year?
Well, we'll talk about year eventually, but probably a little too premature to start talking about age on these at this point, because otherwise it's going to ruin my stories. So we'll do that.
Sorry, Raj. Just hit to the point.
No worries. So it is bottled at 46% or 92 proof, one of the unique you get some really unique flavors coming out of this. They are using a combination of about 90% ex-bourbon barrels and about 10% new American oak barrels for these.
Raj, I have to assume, knowing the climate of Bengaluru, that the maturation rate is a lot faster than in Ireland or Scotland. Could you address that?
Yeah, absolutely, Paul. So Bengaluru is in south central India. It's 3,000 feet above sea level. Their climate in the winter, they're averaging about 75 degrees with about 45% humidity. In the summer, it'll hit 120 to 130 degrees with about 75% humidity. So it's it's drier. Ashok, who is the head distiller, likes to say Amrut's the missing link between Scotland and Kentucky, because they're making single malt like they make in Scotland, but it is maturing like it would in Kentucky, because you have this cooler winters, hotter summers, and the lower humidity. As Paul was alluding to, you do get a lot quicker expansion and contraction of the barrels. In fact, there's a period of time early morning when the temperature is so low, so the barrels are, contracting in, and then it springs, the heat comes up, and the barrels expand out. So they lose 10 to 15% a year, the angel share. So you have very happy angels, but because of that, just think of it: in 5 years, 50% of your barrel's gone.
It's almost like Texas, like the Balcones, where that's more the weather than Kentucky, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, he was just. I mean, everyone knows. They're more familiar with Kentucky as being the home of American whiskey and bourbon and stuff. So, just using that as an example, but certainly, if you look at the climate and the impact it has on there, and the quicker maturation you're going to get. But you lose a lot of content, right? You're gonna lose content, but your alcohol strength goes up. So they're filling the barrels at 62.8, and oftentimes after about 5 or 6 years, the strength of the whiskey in the barrel is over 70%, 140, 141, 42 proof.
Now, I would imagine with the climate change, they have to be much more aggressive in managing where the barrels are in the rickhouse and shifting stuff around.
No, they've actually tried like putting the barrels in the cellar, see if that slows it down. That hasn't really done anything. All the warehouses are all concrete warehouses with steel racks, about 6 high, and certainly, the higher points you do get quicker maturation, more evaporation than you do in the lower and central parts of the warehouse. But it doesn't really slow it down, nor do they want to, because let's face it, that's part of the charm of Amrut, is the fact that you have that quicker maturation going on. You have the rapid expansion and contraction of the barrels, so a lot more interaction with the spirit and the wood, which gives you this really incredible flavor. And somebody asked me before about the age on this. So you've been sipping on this. How old do people think it is?
I would guess
I say 4 years old.
4 to 6 years.
Yeah.
No, I know it's 4 to 6 years, but it feels like you're sipping a 18-year-old whiskey, honestly.
Yeah, what's in your glass right now is 4 to 5 years old.
Yeah.
But so when we started bringing Amrut in 2009, we purposely chose not to put an age statement on there because if we had this whiskey on the shelves saying 4-year-old single malt, how many people would want it? People would look at it and go, "I'm just going to walk by it."
Yeah.
But when you, as you've all alluded to, when you have it in your glass and you're drinking, it drinks a lot more mature than the age of it.
Oh yeah.
Right. And that just shows you age. Age is only a number. It really doesn't make a difference. It's a lot more. The factors are a lot more driven by where the whiskey's made, where it is matured, the climate conditions that affect that and bring it into play.
Are
That's
the
something that I
barrels
like to
charred
stress
any
all the
different?
time is that age is just a number. And
Right. I got two different people saying things. So.
And I like to also push educationally the aspect when I talk about Indian whiskeys in particular as to how much faster they do mature. And I generally say hey, for every year in India, it's equal to 3 to 4 in Scotland, and that seems to be a good transition point.
Yeah, that's a good point, Jeff. I mean, we like to say that 1 year in Bengluru is like 3 years in Scotland. So the classic whiskey is going to have the, if you want to compare it, it's going to have the characters of a 12 to 15-year-old Scotch. But they're not trying to be Scotch. They're making single malts, they're making their own thing, they're doing their own thing, just like Cavalan's doing their own thing, just like a lot of other world single malts are.
Raj, I find this really peppery. And I have to think that it's the 6-row barley, which is much spicier in nature than 2-row. Do you think that's the case?
Well, I think that certainly is, but it also, the 6-row barley, Paul, as has less carbohydrates in it, higher nitrogen level, so that contributes to it. But we like to say it's an Indian single malt, so it's got to be spicy. Right.
Yeah.
We like to joke about that, but yeah, there is that element of spice. I mean, the normal characteristic notes of Amrut are that sort of chocolatey cocoa. There's certainly some orange notes in there, and some anise or fennel is very common in Amrut as its core characteristics. And then that's sort of peppery. Some people say it's more like maybe a little garam masala, a little bit of it. There are hints of spice in there as well.
Yeah, Raj, I always wanted to know, what is the source of water, the distillery source of water?
Okay, so I was on with another session last week, and somebody threw that out there, and I was like, okay, so how much difference does water really make in distilling? I think that the big thing is you look at a lot of distilleries in Scotland and Kentucky and other places will tout the fact that here's where the water's coming from, and the water makes a huge difference. But let's face it, when back 100, 150, 200 years ago, certainly the source of water was a big factor because that you knew where the water was coming from. You're getting clean water. But today, water's water, right? You heat water to different levels. Water is either goes through a deionization process or is boiled, so it's distilled before it's added to the product. So any kind of impurities are being stripped out of there. There's people have written a lot about water, whether it is a factor or not a factor. But Ken, to answer your question, Amrut, about 4 miles away from the distillery, have their own lake property where they have a deep bore well that's about half a mile deep, and the water gets pumped up from there, gets filled into water tankers and brought to the distillery. And if you go onto our website and look at the Amrut videos, there is one for the water, and we're drinking the water just as it's coming right out of the lake, being pumped up. So it's very clean and clear. When it does come to the distillery, it does go through a reverse osmosis process to remove any other kind of impurities that might be in there. But the water's so clear and clean to drink just as it comes out. Okay, hopefully I'll answer that. All right, so what do we think of the classic single malt?
Oh, it's beautiful. I love it. It's like a combination of Japan, Indian, and Texas to me, like all these different elements in there. And then when you say the environment it's in, it's beautiful. I got a feeling that the cask strength is going to be even smoother.
Yeah. Actually, that's a good point. So on that note, why don't we pour the cask strength, which is in the blue container. And one thing you'll notice about the cask strength, it is 61.8% ABV or 123.6. Okay. Don't let that scare you off. It is not going to drink like that. And so this is the same thing as the first whiskey you had, but the first whiskey you had has actually been diluted down to 46% or 92 proof, while this is what we call cask strength. However, the regulations in India don't really allow Amrut to bottle at full cask strength. And that is because the regulations say that you cannot bottle something at a higher strength than what you fill the barrels at. Okay, so when we drink the peated cask strength, 62.8, that's the highest that Amrut's allowed to export. So although this is not true cask strength, it is the cask strength version.
Yeah, this one's the nose is not quite as pungent as the first. It's more refined.
Which is interesting.
The taste, though,
is higher alcohol.
The taste is like tenfold, though, to me. And then it is smoother. I called it.
Yeah, which is really interesting because normally when you go to a higher proof whiskey, especially something this high, you're going to get that alcohol burn. You're going to get the alcohol sort of muting the flavors or concealing the flavors. But I've always found with Amrut that it doesn't do that. And I think I owe a lot of that to just the maturation process, how rapidly the barrels are expanding, contracting, and how much the interplay is between the spirit and the wood.
So,
Raj, you mentioned
Raj, speaking of barrels, what's the predominant type of barrel that's used at Amrut?
Ex-bourbon, Paul. So they have a love of a particular supplier, although given the high demand for ex-bourbon barrels all over the world, those sort of supplies have shut down. When I was at the distillery in September, they had just gotten a supply, and that's going to be the last from that particular supplier. But we've been able to manage to reach out to other suppliers and been able to get a constant supply, because next year they figure they're going to need about 3,500 barrels.
Could that possibly change the profile because of
No,
that
I think
change?
they have enough barrels. We've worked to get other supplies, and then they'll use the barrels 2, maybe 3 times, and then after that they are stripping the barrels, recharring them to use. But obviously that's for further maturation. For the initial fill, they're still going to use the ex-bourbons and some New American oak.
Raj, this is one of those.
So they use STR.
Sorry, go ahead, John.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, they use STR process, right?
Not entirely. They use it slightly. I mean, they're not doing the full Jim Swan process, but that is something that they have in their stable if they need to repurpose or reutilize barrels that have been exhausted.
Barrel acquisition's a real issue right now for a lot of people.
It absolutely
there
is. It absolutely is.
I've become master blender for an American whiskey called Jacob's Pardon, and barrel acquisition is just a real tough issue right now. So I sympathize with Amrut.
Yep.
Yeah.
And at least the good thing is that Amrut has the ability to use other barrels. Being a small family operation, they have a supplier in Spain that gets some sherry barrels and port barrels. They've recently used a variety of other Madeira, Marcella, Sauterne, Fino sherry, and then their big claim to fame is obviously their Spectrum barrel, which was at 1.5, and now 4 different barrel staves cut into shape to make one barrel. So you have new American oak, new French oak, Oloroso, and PX barrel staves that make this hybrid cask, which they use to mature their Spectrum single malts in.
So, what size is the?
Sorry, you froze.
Yeah. So, what size is the Spectrum barrel? Is it the butt? Is it the sherry butt size, or it's a 200 liter?
Yeah, 225, 250 liter. So it's more like a
hogshead.
Yeah, hogshead size.
Hogshead.
Yep. But it's interesting, because you have the different staves, right? If you look at
Staves.
French oak and sherry oak, the thicker staves, bigger obviously because you're getting them from butts. Those all have to be cut down into shape and size to be able to create that hybrid barrel.
It'd be a nightmare for a Cooper, I'll tell you.
Yeah, but the Coopers rose to the occasion. They were like, yeah, we can do that. And they made quite a supply of them, which Amrut continues to use. So,
Hey, Raj, this one has legs that a few whiskeys do. And this one, I keep looking at my glass and it just drips down like a wine. I was like, this is thick and creamy.
Very, very thick, very viscous. A lot of depth, a lot of character, and considering it's like I said, 4 to 5 years in the barrel, it's still got a lot more richness, a lot more unctuousness than you would get from matured in a cooler climate.
Definitely,
I would not believe this is a 5-year.
Yeah, no, this is like at least 14. It tastes to me.
This is one of those that if you set this up blind for me, I could not tell you that these were the same whiskey.
Yeah.
I was about
to do that a lot.
I agree. I agree with you. Yeah.
Not.
They're
this
really
one, no.
Yeah. It's incredibly different. To me, the cask strength is much fruitier. I was getting all that pepper spice in the 46%. But then when we moved to the cask strength, it was kind of like ambrosia. All of a sudden, there's just so much fruit.
Yes.
Really
smooth, sweet,
really
and beautiful, and fruit. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, and if you put, a little bit of water in there is just going to bring out more of that fruit.
Really heat.
But I've always been surprised at a big fan. I've always been surprised at the Amrut cask strength whiskeys, how much they deliver. Because as I was saying earlier, you look at some cask strength whiskeys and your mouth is sort of numb for the first little bit because the alcohol just sort of does that, but you don't get that here.
No.
Very smooth, Raj.
Yeah.
Boy, it's a beautiful whiskey.
It is. Thank you.
Adding a few drops of water makes it last longer. I'm surprised.
Oh, yeah.
I diluted it with a few drops of water, and the finish was much longer.
Yeah. Well, the water opens up the alcohol molecules in there.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. But even on this one, Paul, I'm still getting like that peppery note you picked up before. That's still there at the forefront of the tongue.
But the creaminess.
Yeah, and again, you get when you're not chill filtering and you're using good barrel regime, you're going to retain all those fats and oils. And I also think that the the 6-row barley also contributes to that. You know, you're getting more a richer distillate. So all of those factors are contributing.
What char profile are they using on the barrels?
3.
Yeah.
In fact, they have their own cooper on site that when they have to do barrel repairs or if they're recharring a barrel, again, if you go on our website, we have a video of the guy doing that all by hand. You know, he's just standing there, blowing through the, heating the barrel out, just rotating it, and then splashing water in it to cool it down. So,
now I have a critical question.
Yep.
Where can I get this near Orlando?
Well, the Total Wine ABC, I don't think ABC carries the cask strength, but I think Total Wine does.
Okay, I'll have to check it out. I haven't seen it.
And then a few other. I'm just trying to think who else is. Some of the better whiskey retailers would also have it. Yeah.
What about Virginia?
Virginia, no, because the only things that we send to Virginia are the single malt, the peated, and the fusion. You know, you'd have to go to neighboring states like probably DC to get it. Yeah. But if you went to your local retailer in Virginia and said that you wanted it, they would bring it in.
Oh.
They should bring it in because it is listed in Virginia, but it's all special order that, you know, everything comes in on consignment and then goes to the different retailers.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Okay. Any questions on that before we move on to the fusion?
That was just truly outstanding.
Yeah. That's
What's the barrel entry proof, Raj? You said 62.5 is the barrel entry?
62.8.
62.8. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's funny because in India itself, 46% is the highest that they can sell it. Most alcohol in India is sold at 42.8, which seems like an odd number, but that's equal to the old British proof of 75.
Yeah.
So Raj, to chuckle this, one of my buddies is from Bengluru, and he's back for the holidays right now, and I asked him to pick up some of this for me.
Well, he won't be able to get the cask strength. Like I was saying earlier, the highest they can sell anything for is 46%. So that if he finds something, it's going to be a little different. Even the fusion there, even though it's 50% here, it's 46 there. All right. So speaking of fusion, let's grab the fusion and try that out. So fusion was first released in late 2009, came to the US in early 2010. It is called fusion because it is a marriage between the whiskey you just had, 75% of that, and 25% of their peated single malt, which we're going to have next. So the two whiskeys are made separately, and then they'll take 75% of the single malt, 25% of the peated, and they are married together. They'll spend about 6 to 9 months in a barrel marrying before it's bottled. When this whiskey came out in 2009, 2010, it sort of rocked the world. It really woke people up to the possibilities that India could make amazing single malt whiskeys. Malt Maniacs named it Best Daily Dram in 2009. And 2010, it won a slew of awards, and it continues to do that.
It was a game changer, I think, Raj. It really was.
Yeah. I always joke with Paul because back in, I think, 2010 or 11, in the Spirits Challenge, I called Paul up and said, I want to enter fusion, but there was no Indian single malt category back then. So I said, can you put it in the Scotch category? And which we did. But back then too, it was not only, it was a whiskey, but it got made into 3 classic Scotch cocktails, and took first place in the Rob Roy, and I think second place in the Rusty Nail and the Blood and Sand. So it really
Boy,
shocked me.
your memory is fantastic, Rod. But no, it really showed well right from the beginning. And I mean, at Ultimate Spirits Challenge, we're at the point now where we're getting 10, 12, sometimes 15 Indian whiskeys every year.
Yep.
And just goes to show how things have changed.
Absolutely.
Not just Amrut, but of course Paul John and Rampur and Indri. Indri sent us their 3-wood this past May, and the judges, who are difficult judges, scored it a 91, and but
Impressive.
Amrut and Paul John just consistently score extremely well, and. Yeah, as I say, these are not easy judges. They're
No, I appreciate that.
And
So
so
I mean,
getting-
when I mean, Amrut took a risk, right? It was in 2000. So 2004 was when they launched, and in the UK, and they had all these barrels sitting there. So Rick Jackdale, Neil's son, was doing his MBA at the University of Newcastle and trying to decide what to do his thesis on. And his dad said, well, why don't you do this? See if we can, what the chances are of selling an Indian whiskey to the world. So part of their analysis was they went to a pretty famous whiskey bar in Glasgow and had the owner pour the single malt for people, not tell them what it was, where it was from, and just listen to comments. And people would say, oh, it's a Space Side, it's a Highland, it's 10 years old, 12 years old, whatever. And when he would pull out the bottle and say, no, it's from India and it's 3 years old or 4 years old, people couldn't believe it. So they thought, okay, if this is, in Scotland, if this is the reaction, we can certainly try and bring it to the rest of the world.
And Raj, did he continue talking to them and tell them that 7 of the top 10 whiskeys in the world are made in India?
Well, he didn't, because that would have just confused things a little bit. Yeah. I mean, that's a good point. When you look at it, the whiskey in the broadest term, like Paul was saying, 7 of the 10 top selling whiskeys in the world are Indian single malt whiskeys, or Indian whiskeys, not single malt.
Sorry, Indian whiskeys, yeah.
Indian whiskeys. There are more distilleries in India than there are in Scotland.
Yeah.
Really?
But not all of them make single malt. There's more and more now that are making them. But right now there's probably about 8 or 10 that are making decent single malt whiskeys in India.
Well, I mean, when you went from a historical standpoint, when you think that distillation in India / Pakistan, Central Asia, has been around very likely since about 200 BCE.
Yep.
Raj, I mean,
300.
Yeah. So around what used to be Taxila, I think, if I'm not mistaken. So I mean, this isn't new territory for this area of the world.
Yeah. No, absolutely, you're right. I mean, it's funny. During obviously the British reign, a lot of any kind of innovation, any kind of domestic production was shut down. But ironically, one of the British army persons was responsible, set up the first whiskey distillery in India, up in the north of India.
Yeah.
Which is still operating. It's operating under a different location now, but it's still there. But that was in 1860 something. I can't remember exactly.
1864.
64. Yeah. Mohan Meekan, right? That's the
Mohan Meekan, yeah.
Yeah, distillery now. And so they continue to, that distillery continued to operate. And then after the British left in the, late 40s, early 50s, a lot more distilleries started producing things.
But I think there was also a distillery, Raj, started by a guy, I think If I recall, his name was Edward Dyer.
Yes, that's the one. That's who I'm talking about.
Yeah, but I
Yeah.
thought that was the 1820s. That
I
opened
thought
up.
it was in the 60s. Maybe it was the 20s. I'm not sure. 18 something, but yeah.
Yeah.
And that was
No,
very far
first they-
north in India.
Yeah, in Shimla, they first started a brewery and for British Army, and then they converted it to distillery a couple of decades later.
Okay.
Okay, that's what it was. Yeah. All right. So what do you think of Fusion?
Oh, lovely, Raj. What's the ppm on this? What's the ppm on this one?
In the bottle, it's probably about 14 to 16. No, sorry, this is lower. Sorry, this is probably about
12?
8 to 10.
Yeah, I could. Yeah, it's.
Yeah, when you taste the peated, especially
Yeah.
the peated cask strength, you're going to get more of that. And I'll talk more about how they go and get their peated with malt done.
Did you say that this was 25%
Peated.
peated? Really?
Yeah, I'm such a
Wait,
peat
and-
head. I don't taste the peat because I
Oh
have
no,
a
that's
lot of.
and Raj, where's the peat from? Is it from Highland or it's the Isla peat? It seems more like Highland.
It's Highland peated. It's peated.
Yeah,
at,
it feels. Yeah.
Baird maltings in Inverness. And
Okay.
peated to
Inverness, okay.
Amrut specifications.
If you didn't tell me it was peated, I wouldn't even notice.
Yeah,
Oh,
you'll
it's
pick. I mean, that's interesting. That's why I said if you look at the batch, I'm drinking batch number 110, which was bottled in December 2021, and there are slight variations from batch to batch. But with the Fusion, you tend to get any kind of peat emblems at the back of the throat. More when you swallow it, rather than up front.
I guess
Oh, that's
me being a
sweet.
barbecuer, this is like a smoked pork. Like you get the hint of smoke, but it's sweet.
Yeah.
Nice barbecue pork to it.
Boy,
I describe
that is spot on.
I describe the peat on this one as a soft, gentle kiss.
Yes.
Normally I drink Talisker, and this
Yep.
is much, much better.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Talisker
yeah.
would be more of like that briny, though.
Yes.
You get the C in that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny when when we first started bringing Amrut in. I mean, the only way for me to get people to buy it was by tasting, right? So, I mean, I did a lot of blind tastings, and what I would do is have the single malt and a Scotch, the Fusion and a Scotch, and the peat and a Scotch blind, and have everybody taste them, and then at the end do the unveiling and say, okay, which one was the Indian, which one was the Scotch. And it was, invariably the Amrut was always taking the first place in all of them. But I would use Talisker as the pairing with the Fusion to do that.
It's a world-class whiskey, Raj. It really is.
Thank you, Paul. Yeah.
Oh, Fusion is.
We think so. Yeah. And let's face it. I mean, Amrut, is responsible for setting the floor and also opening the door to not only other Indian single malt whiskeys, but other ones from around the world.
Right.
I think if you look at Taiwan, if you look at Kavalan, you look at Amrut, you look at some of the Japanese who have the smaller producers, they've laid the groundwork for what's going on right now in so many places around the world.
Mm-hmm.
It's incredible. I'm a big proponent of world whiskeys and world single malt whiskeys, and we import Bimber out of London. We do Shizuoka out of Japan. I'm talking to somebody in New Zealand right now that what they're doing is really exciting, and I'm really looking forward to bringing their whiskeys in, and a few others, Iceland possibilities.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm loving whiskeys from New Zealand now. They're really good.
Yeah. We'll and Australia. I mean, we brought in Australian whiskeys before anybody had even heard of them. So,
Which one is that?
we used to import Sullivan's Cove from.
Oh, Sullivan's Cove. Oh, yeah.
Where do you get the Fusion? Is in Nevada at all?
Yeah, the Fusion's available statewide, countrywide.
Okay.
Yeah, fusion is easy to find. The others are not.
Well, not in Utah.
Oh,
Well, you know what? We're not in Utah, but we will be sometime next year.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Sweet.
Utah's one of 3 or 4 states we're not in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Please come in here.
Well, we will. We definitely will. All right. You guys liked fusion? What do you think?
Oh yeah.
Oh, that's my favorite right now.
So good.
I could have this with barbecue.
Always been a stunning pour. Always.
It's
Yeah.
super smooth, Pete.
Still surprises people. You know, it's yeah. And that's so. Speaking of the peat, let's grab the peated 46%. That's the grayish tin.
Can I ask you a math question while you're doing that?
Sure.
At the risk of sounding annoying, are these, when they were blending 75-25, are they all going in at 100 proof, or is there one proof higher, or do you know?
That's a good question. I think they bring them down to 50% because that's what it's bottled at.
Yeah, right.
So the single malt and the fusion would be brought down to the peated and the single malt would be brought down to 50% before they're put into the marrying cask.
Okay, so regardless of whatever the blend may be, they're brought down to 50%. That makes sense.
They are, because that's what it's bottled at, but also you'll get, the amount of the peated in there might vary from 20 to 25%. It just depends.
Right.
Because you can never get consistency in peating and malting. Because there's what you asked for it to be peated to, but by the time it gets to the distillery, it's already lost some of its ppm, and then obviously once it's distilled and aged, matured, you're going to continue to lose the phenols.
Right. I'm just trying to relate it to what we had to what we're about to have, and it makes sense. Like you'd blend first, and then lower.
Putting my master blender hat on and taking my journalist off, Sean, I have found that it's always easier to reduce before blending the final blend.
All right.
All the different parts, much easier to do that than waiting to combine everything.
Yeah, that makes sense, Paul.
Different whiskeys react to dilution in different ways.
Mm-hmm.
So it's always easier, at least for me, doing American whiskey, to make any corrections before the final blend is all put together.
Interesting. Yeah, I had no idea about that.
Yeah,
Thanks.
that would make sense.
It doesn't make sense, but it's how I do it. I wish
I think it makes sense.
I wish something made sense in blending whiskey.
Yeah.
It's logical. It's logical. I'll go with that.
Yeah. All right, the peated.
Oh my God, the peated.
So actually, if you have 2 glasses, why don't you pour the peated and the peated cask strength in different glasses just to compare them? I think that would do justice to these, and just to show the differences. So the main peated is again at 46% or 92 proof, where the cask strength peated is at 62.8 or 125.6.
Oh, yeah. Okay, grab another glass.
All right.
I'm a huge fan of the peated cask strength.
Well, right now the peated, I'm just saying that maybe it's just me because I'm a barbecue caterer and all that, but this is like a brisket to me. The smell on the nose, but like
I always,
sweet
it's
brisket.
funny because
That is so on point. That is so on point.
Somebody had said earlier about like smoked pork. I always got like smoked pork belly or barbecue pork belly notes in this. Got meatiness, little umami in there.
Yeah.
But when you compare the two, obviously the cask strength version is a lot more robust noses. You get in the 46%. It's sort of a little more sweet notes.
Oh yeah.
To be honest, I prefer the 46%.
Okay.
On the nose, because
that's why there's so many whiskeys. Like if everybody liked the same thing, we'd have one whiskey in the world. So
I love the nose on 46.
I actually
Super agree.
I actually prefer the cask strength.
I do
I
too.
prefer the
I mean,
cast strength too. The 46 is interesting though because you get a lot of plantain on the nose, and and in the palate also, and that's really unusual.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's because Julius suggested it, but all I can smell is brisket right now.
Yeah,
Smoked meats, yeah.
that's just me.
Oh,
This is both I need in my life right here. This should be right next to
dude.
me when I'm smoking pork
This is
and
the
all
bomb.
that.
The bomb.
Like even the cast strength, it's like just more sweetness. You got like a honey barbecue to it.
yeah,
And then-
there is that real sweetness in there. So when they're getting the barley malted, I think they asked for about I'm trying to remember 38 to 40, 45 ppm level. But obviously by the time it's bottled, so in the
Pretty
bottle,
moderate.
you're probably looking more like 16 to 20 ppm.
I love the cask strength because to me it's whereas the 46 is sweeter. This is the cask strength to me is more bittersweet.
Yeah. Not in the sad way, but more in
Oh,
the
no,
flavor.
no, not at all.
I want to say like the cast strength on the nose is like your charcoal barbecue brisket, and then the other one is your wood. You know,
Dude, I just drank brisket. That's amazing.
Yeah, you'll notice on the palate, it's different too.
Oh yeah.
To me, 46
No, yeah.
is like barnyard. And
Leave my
sweetness on
family
there.
out of this can.
God.
I still don't get a lot of peat on my cask strength. I'm surprised.
I agree. I think that's the strangest thing about this experience is that you get more peat on the 46%.
Yes,
I
totally agree.
Yeah.
Me too.
because of the water opening it up, but give the cask strength some time.
Yeah.
Let it sit in your mouth, and you'll notice it coming up. But you get more because this is mainland peat and not Isla peat. You're going to get more of that earthy, deciduous nuts than salty, iodine kind of features.
That's why I'm like a Arpeg Lafroig fan. So I don't really taste the sweet or peat in both or smell it.
Yeah.
It's more sweet to me.
Somebody
mentioned balcones earlier, right? They're like this.
Oh yeah.
What's funny is like rumble.
Yes.
Like when it's like it's got no balls unless it's cast strength, and it's like way too sweet. And when you get cast strength, it's like, oh, okay, all right, that's nice. But like, I don't really enjoy the watered down, the lower proof version at all. And this is kind of the opposite, which is a very unique experience for me.
Yeah.
Is anybody else noticing that between the 46 and the cask strength, getting to the brisket or the smoked meats, the 46 is putting the brisket in your mouth and just savoring it. The cask strength is actually biting into it and chewing it. It's very meaty.
Oh
yeah.
Cask strength is meaty.
The brisket flavors really come out hard.
I've never
That's why I
heard
say
so
that
many
at
At least for me, the cast strength on the nose is so much stronger than the 46. The 46 is sweet and smooth, and you're smelling that brisket. The cast strength is like just I am getting in your nose, and I am letting you know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's why I say like the charcoal in that in the
A
cast.
few drops of water transforms the cask strength.
It does. Yeah.
It changes into a different beast altogether.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
Probably
this is 125.
Now we get into the Ardbeg territory. After a few drops of water, you're in the Ugadal territory. Oh. Now I'll go for cask strength.
Right about that. You are so right about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really like the cask strength peated. That's my go-to Amrut. That's everyone asks me what's my favorite, and I'm always hesitant to say that because it always depends on who you're with, what you're drinking, what your mood's like. But if I have a go-to Amrut, it's the peated cask.
I'm going to add this to my collection now because I'm a peat head. I mean, for me, I don't know if you can see, I've everything around here is peat.
Yeah, I've got the same stuff. It's just way less.
Delicious, Raj. Really,
Oh,
so-
this is
really delicious. If I could
delicious.
have I'd bathe in it.
There you go. Well, maybe I'll talk when I'm there in February, Paul. I'll get them to make a cologne from the Amrut. Yeah.
Oh, I would so buy that.
Right. So, show of hands, who prefers the 46 to the cast strength? All right, two of you. The rest,
I am both. I like them both. I want them all. I can't.
After
I can't
adding
choose.
drop of water,
Oh, no,
I
you got to
think
pick.
even
You got to pick a
Steven-
side. No
Water's
tapping out.
game changer. The water might change.
All right, I'll go with
No,
gray.
I-
The gray one.
Me 46. I'm at 46 without
I'm
water.
at the 46
But
without
the
water.
nobody's talked about is the mouthfeel on the 46. Nose and the mouthfeel. It's almost like I don't even care what it tastes like because I just want it in my mouth forever. It is spectacular, and the flavor is amazing too. I agree with what everybody's saying, but the mouthfeel is just for a lower proof whiskey. The mouthfeel is spectacular.
Yeah, and it lingers too. It's like probably 15, 20 seconds of a finish, maybe more. It's fantastic.
Oh, it's like a good wine. Like it lingers in it. The legs on this is the same thing.
It's silky.
Oh yeah, it is.
It's silky in your mouth.
it is.
I will kill this bottle in under 2 weeks.
All right, I'm coming over.
Days.
I'm coming over.
There you go.
You always invited. I never said no.
Yeah, I mean, just you can see why I import Amrut and still continue to love it because it's just what they do is phenomenal.
Raj, what is the suggested retail for the first five?
First five. So the 46% classic is about 60.
Wow, that's reasonable.
The cast strength is about 85.
Wow,
The
that's very reasonable.
fusion 75. The peated 75. And a peated cast strength 95 to 100.
Wow. So none of these break 100, and that's incredible value for money, I think.
Oh yeah.
Nothing we've had
definitely.
yet break 100, but we'll get to that territory. So,
But you're giving such great value to your customer.
But it's funny, Paul, because people say, well, it's 4 to 5 years you got whiskey ready to sell, and why is it that price? And saying, well, look how much you lose, right? Look how much your evaporation is, your angel share, right? If you didn't have all those angels taking all of that stuff, you'd have more to sell. But it would take longer for it to reach that level of intensity. So there's a trade-off.
Sure.
And
But that's why years is such a terrible metric for us to use.
Agreed. Yeah,
I agree.
it really is.
Yeah.
Really is.
No, it makes sense in Scotland, but outside of Scotland, it just doesn't make sense.
No.
It makes sense
No.
if you understand where you're dealing with.
But I mean, let's face it too. The price of barley is worldwide. Everybody's paying the same price for barley, right? So just because you're in India doesn't mean you're getting it cheaper. And the cost of material is the same. The barrels actually cost more because they got to get the barrels from the U.S. to India. So that's a cost factor as well.
Right. Yours is
Raj, I
good
forgot
for
to
a
ask you.
regional measure, but not outside of a region.
I think yours just has to be depending on location and environment.
Right. That's
and
what I'm saying,
weather.
regional. Yeah.
No regional. Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Raj, your copper still is it made in Scotland or it's completely fabricated in India? The stills?
Fabricated in India. So when Neil wanted a pot still, he drew a picture and said to the coppersmith, "Make this for me." And so the coppersmith made it. And
So do you have a long gooseneck or a short neck? I haven't been to Amrut.
Short neck. I don't have pictures, but again, there. If you go to our website, you'll see the pictures of the distillery. So the original distillery, everything is done there. They have a column still, they've got pot stills, but they were running out of capacity to produce single malt. So they built a new distillery right next to the old distillery that is only making single malts. And they have two wash stills and 2 spirit stills.
Okay.
And I'm trying to think how 6 or 8 fermentation tanks.
Okay. Now, are they their wash tins are wooden or steel?
Steel, stainless steel.
Steel.
Yeah.
Steel, okay.
And they go through a very long fermentation. They're 145 to 165 hours fermentation.
Oh wow! And what? And the beer comes out at what, 9%?
Yeah, about 8 to 9%. Yep.
8 to 9%. Okay.
Yep. And they're very slow distillation as well. So they're taking. Ashok made some when Ashok became the head distiller about 4 years ago. He made some changes, and so he's taking a little tighter cuts on there and longer fermentation.
So they're doing a very narrow cut.
Yes, correct.
Okay.
But
And
the new make, I mean, I've got some bottles of new make that we did. Ashok was here a few months ago. We did a little tour, and we did some start off with some new make tastings for people just to show them.
Oh, you were here in Chicago? Were you in Chicago?
No. He was in the. We did a East Coast thing in the West. So.
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
But he'll be back. He'll be back in June or July, and we will be in Chicago then.
Oh, so we should because Surinder, because Paul, to your the Indri, Surinder is the man behind Indri now. Surinder was the person who was Amrut's master distiller up until 4 years back.
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I was really impressed with the Indri. Very, very pleasant.
And there's a new one called Dhyanchand. That's a good one too. My brother sent me a sample of it. It's really interesting.
Who's making that one?
It's one of the older distilleries. He told me it's they've been basically bulk. They also supply to Amrut. I forget the name. It's based out of Punjab, or it's based out of Jammu. I'm sorry, it's based out of Jammu.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they've been around for a while. I remember my uncle telling me about them. This is like they've been around for 60, 70 years, but they were mostly into sourcing. Then I don't think they ever bottled their own. This is the first. It's called Dhyanchand or Dhyanchand. I have a little sample of it. Really, really tasty. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, there's so much happening. I mean, I'm friends with a number of whiskey groups in India, and they're always getting all these things and showing them up there. You know, it's funny because the reason that Amrut, when it first launched their single malt, it was export only because in the early 2000s, mid 2000s, the appetite or palate for or desire for single malts in India was very low. People were more into blends and a lot of the Indian whiskeys. And that's why Neil said, no, let's make it export only. So in 2010, 11, 12, when Amrut started winning awards, people in India would call up the distillery and say, where can I buy this? And they were told, you have to leave the country to get it. It wasn't available. And now it is, but the domestic demand is 5 times more than they can supply. And whenever anything gets released, it's gone within 24 hours.
Raj, do you have a presence in duty free?
In India, yes, but the duty free game in India is something that you don't necessarily want to get into, but sometimes you have to.
Right.
It's it's sort of like being in FIFA where you pay for certain things.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is totally free from corruption, of course.
Correct. Absolutely. Yeah. That's right. So, all right. Should we try the Portonova? So, Portonova is a limited release item. It is bottled at 62.1. It is the single malt, so the cask strength single malt you had, and then after 3 years, then it goes into a port pipe, and it spends about 3 years in the port cask, port bottle.
Yeah, Kiba, I think you're accidentally off mute.
Yeah. Akiba.
Yeah, I am. I'm back.
Welcome back.
We're getting a lot of background noise from you, bro.
Oh, I'm not sure what that's bringing on, but okay.
So no, this is all natural color. Obviously coming from the port pipes.
Raj, I'm sorry, I couldn't hear your description of what is in my glass right now.
So this is the Amrut Portonova. Portonova is the cask strength single malt. So the second whiskey we had, that then goes into a port pipe for another 3 years of aging. So this is about 6.5 years total aging.
Oh.
Thank you.
This is nectar and glass.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Really rich and viscous.
Real Amrut. This is Amrut.
So when Kane says it's Amrut, I forgot to say what Amrut means. Amrut is
Nectar of the gods.
basically the nectar of the gods, the drink for eternal life. In mythology, you had the gods and the demons fighting each other. They were in this big tug of war, and they had this big serpent that they were pulling back and forth. It was wrapped around Mount Meru, which was a mountain in the Indian Ocean. And when they were pulling it back and forth, the mountain started turning and churning, and this pot emerged from the ocean, which the gods drank from and gave them eternal life. So the contents of that pot were called Amrita or Amrut, and that is.
This for sure will extend my life by another 20 years. This is so good.
It gives you a reason. It gives you a great reason.
Limited release. It was absent from the market for about 3 years just because they couldn't get the quality of port casks that they wanted. But this year, I convinced Ashok to come back to releasing these, and I think this year we got 250 cases for the U.S. And this will retail for about 130, 135.
That's not bad at all because Kavlan retails for about 200, the same Kavlan port.
Mm-hmm.
So 130 is a steal for this one. I need to pay for it. I'll buy a case.
Yeah.
I'll help with shipping costs. I'll pick up some bottles too.
Yeah.
But I didn't find these at Benny's. This is excellent.
It should be. I know we sent some to Chicago, to Illinois, so it should be there.
So, Raj, can you back up like an hour here? You sorry, but I think that you had said that there are more distilleries in India than there are in Scotland. But then you had said there's about 8 or 9 of them making good single malts. So
yes.
Is India just making a ton of poor whiskey? Is that what's going on?
Well, everything, not only pour whiskey, but I mean, the distillery. So every state has multiple distilleries, except for there are a few states that are dry states. So there is no alcohol production that goes on there. Although those dry states probably consume more alcohol than the non-dry states.
Awesome.
But the distilleries will produce gin, vodka, brandy, whiskey, but like rum. Well, it's ironic that a country like India that produces so much sugarcane does not have a lot of domestic rum. That's changing. There's a lot more rum that's now coming out, but most of the molasses production is the base for the vodkas, the gins, and their whiskeys.
So was that true? There's more whiskey distilleries in India than there are in Scotland. Did I hear that right?
There's more.
Oh yeah, it's true.
There's more distilleries, period, in
Okay.
India. But and whiskey, if you use the broadest whiskey term, and what's sold domestically in India as whiskey, yes. But if you're looking at just single malt production, there's probably only about a dozen distilleries that are making single malt in India.
No,
Raj, did you,
Todd, to your question, they make,
Sorry. I was going to ask.
they make more rectified spirits out of molasses, and then they import scotch. My uncle used to do that. Import scotch and then add 7-8% of scotch, and the rest 97%, 92% rectified spirit, and then they call it whiskey. Because the Indian government had banned up until 1990s. There was a ban on using grains because, using grains to make whiskey. So the Indians could make whiskey only using molasses or sugar cane.
I was gonna ask on the. I don't know if you said the port barrel. Where did that come from?
From Portugal, but it's from a broker that they use that provides them with their sherry and their port barrels. So this would have been a port pipe. It's probably a tawny port barrel rather than a ruby port.
Okay.
Just from the style of it.
This is excellent. Really, it's
Yes.
stunning.
And Amrut has done so because of Amrut's reputation as a great producer of single malts and being the first one to do it. They've reached out to different distilleries in India who produce single malts and saying, hey, we're going to do this project called Single Malts of India. And the first one that was released was called Nidal, which was from a distillery, a coastal distillery. Jeff loved that one. That was a 100% peated Indian barley. The newest one that we haven't gotten yet, but I have an advanced bottle because I brought it back in September, is called Karinji, which is a mountainous region. So all of the names refer to the different geographical regions in India. So very similar to Scotland, where you have the lowlands, the highlands, Speyside, etc. So Karinji will be available in the new year. From a totally different distillery, different style, but an incredible whiskey. But they're working to try and elevate the whole persona and quality, making people more aware of what's going on in India as far as single malt production goes. So this is coming soon.
So, question to everybody: if you were to pick up one whiskey from the 6 we've tried so far, which one would that be? Jeff? Oh, Portonova.
Yeah. Oh no, the 46.
How about you, Joe? Huh?
I do either hard fusion or the peated 46. Is this the brisket in liquid brisket?
And Paul, what about you?
I'd go with the cask strength.
Peter?
Cask strength. Yeah.
And Todd? Akiba? Sean, what about you?
Now. Getting into them.
Sean? Oh, okay. I would go with 46 period. I would go with actually cast strength so that I can dilute it down to 46.
I'm with you.
I love Portonova, but the peated, because that's such a great peated whiskey. I mean, I am feeling really. I feel horrible for not having tried it before today. Honestly, I'm saying it on air. I was so stuck up about trying Indian peated whiskey, but after trying this, I'm going to stock up on this one.
But
I've had a case of that for sure.
So for years they've had to get the barley peated in Scotland, to their specifications because they could not find a maltster in India that was able to use heat to dry the barley. But they have found one recently.
Good.
So they're importing importing peat from Scotland and malting Indian barley.
Is this in Delhi?
Yes.
Yeah, I know. I've heard of him. Okay,
So
they're
they're
good.
giving you- so one of so I'm just going to hold up. This is the Amrut Atma, which if
Oh
you
yeah,
see
I've
this
tried Atma.
label,
Yeah.
this is single barrels of Amrut that I select for the U.S. And we did do a 100% peated Indian barley last year. This one I'm holding was the Fino cask, and the most recent one that just came in is a Sauterne cask and then a Madeira cask. Madeira cask just arrived. And we did a Marcella cask as well earlier. So those were the three this year, and I've picked 4 for next year that the first one will bottle in January or February.
Oh, so these are not available outside of US. Atma is US exclusive.
US exclusive. These are barrels
Oh,
that
okay. I didn't know that. Okay.
and they're only available. So Atma is a Sanskrit word that means spirit or soul. So this is the selections, and this is the Fino one I'm holding. And this one, Kane, if you're looking for it, I know Benny's got it because Joe just reached out to me to get tasting notes for it. So he does have a supply of the Fino.
Yeah, I've tried a few Atmas the prior years. I think I tried one Atma in 2020. I liked it, but honestly, I didn't pick it, but I liked it.
Yeah, no, they're good. They're all the single barrels that we did. And some of them yield, like we did a bourbon cask and only yielded 90 bottles.
And it's reasonably priced. It's only $150. That's not bad. I'm going to pick up a few of these.
Yep. Yeah,
they're
good. So.
But so this year's is peated, or every Atma is peated?
No. Everyone's different. So some peated.
Yeah, okay, because
peated.
this is peated. So I'm going to grab this one. Yeah, okay.
This one, no, this is not this is the Fino cask. This is unpeated.
No, but I see on Benny's online, I see peated. But let me check. It says out of stock. Let me check.
Yeah, they would have a peated.
Oh, they have a few. Okay.
A regular peated bourbon as well. So
it says Amrut Atma number 4. Is that the one you're talking? I'm gonna, if it's peated, Amrut Atma number 4.
I can't remember. I think we're up to 7 or 8 now, so I don't remember. And then I just
can't wait. Got to buy it now.
So we were saying because of the rapid maturation and things that Amrut can't release a lot of older whiskeys, but the oldest they've ever released is the Greedy Angels 12-year-old. This was from 2 different barrels. So a total of, they started with 2 250-liter barrels. So a total of 500 liters. After 12 years, how much do you think they had left?
200 liters?
They started with 2 250-liter casks, so a total of 500 liters.
Oh, so what? Each barrel about 100 to 750 ml bottles?
Now I'm saying how much total content did they have left after 12 years?
About 80 liters, 80 to 90 liters. Quick math. I mean, if you do at 15%, it has to be 80. Yeah.
93 liters.
Yeah, 93 liters. Yeah.
That's how much they lost. So they lost, 407 liters over 12 years.
Wow.
I've tried the my brother-in-law is a 8-year Greedy Angels.
Yeah, the 8 years, but this is the 12-year-old, which is the oldest they've ever released, till 240 bottles that were released.
I mean, look at the color on that.
Yeah.
That is just, it's like black tea.
What? It looks like wine to me.
Yeah, it's great. And because next year is Amrut's 75th anniversary, I've convinced him to try and release a 15-year-old Greedy Angels. And they're working on that. They've got a couple of barrels set aside, hoping that they'll be able to get it. It'll be, if it's released, it'll be late next year or early 2024.
Yeah,
very
Raj, I have a
limited.
question for you.
Yeah.
How different is the fusion in that white ceramic bottle from the regular fusion?
You mean this one here?
Yeah, this. Yeah, I mean, is this the same fusion or it's different?
No. So the Fusion X was something that we worked on to commemorate 10 years of Fusion, and this is the Fusion XI, which is Fusion 11 to commemorate 11 years of Fusion. And it is, it actually has some older, I think some 10-year-old or 11-year-old whiskey in it as well. And it's very limited. So it's the essence of Fusion, but it's aged for a lot longer. So
no, other than collector's value, does it is it any different from the regular Fusion?
yes, it is. I mean, there's limited. This was only.
Oh, it is. Okay.
There was only I'm trying to remember 1,000 bottles of this worldwide. And Fusion XI. So,
I saw this at one of the local liquor stores. I was going to pay it, but I wasn't sure if it was worth paying 300 because I didn't know if it was any different from the regular Fusion.
Oh, it absolutely is. Yeah, it's older whiskey that's in it. The Fusion XI has some port export whiskey in there as well. So
yeah, then I'll grab one because I wasn't sure, so I wanted to.
Yeah, I don't know. If the white one is Fusion X, and then the blue one is Fusion XI.
Okay. Yeah. It said the X. I remember seeing that.
Yeah. So that's.
No, but I think it's fortuitous that I did this tasting today because honestly, I was very prejudiced against Indian peated whiskeys, and today everything is. I'll be honest. I'm very upfront and honest about my prejudices. So this has changed my opinion about Indian peated whiskeys. Even Paul John, I've never liked their peated. I love Mithuna. Mithuna is my all-time favorite. Their Christmas editions, but peated, I was somehow. But and Fusion was never my favorite. The original Fusion was like I was 50-50 on it. But after trying the peated version, I'm like, okay, I'm going to grab a few now.
Right. All right.
Wait, it hits all the right notes.
Peated.
Yeah.
That 46 peated.
50% peated. Oh, sorry, the 46% peated. Yeah. Well, I hope you guys all enjoyed this. And
incredible. Thanks a lot.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Spread the word, spread the love of.
Before we end this session, do you have any barrel pick programs in the US?
Yeah, we do. Last year we did. I'm trying to remember. We did 6 or 8 barrels for different retailers, and this year, so in February, we're taking. I'm trying to think. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of our distributors to Amrut in February, and each of them will get to pick a barrel.
Okay, and is peated an option there?
Yep, it is.
Okay, so
we did 2 or 3 years ago. We did single barrels. We took 3 distributors, and each of them got a barrel. So Texas, New Jersey, and California. And then last year we did 3 in California. So K&L got one. Another retailer in California got one, and the Southern California Whiskey Society got.
What about the Midwest? I don't concern myself with California. What about the Midwest?
Texas was the only place in the Midwest. Yeah, and then you gotta go.
So I think we should do something in Chicago. I mean, come on, there are too many Chicagoans here to miss out on.
Well, Chicago's got to buy more Amrut in order to be able to qualify to get a single barrel.
Oh yeah, I understand. Yeah, but Chicago is more bourbon capital of America. So I mean,
All right.
Right.
I would like to enter the lottery.
Okay. Noted. Yeah. Well, the problem is that the demand, as I said earlier, the demand for Amrut far exceeds the supply. So trying to get a continual barrel program is very difficult. We're like I'm told at the end of every year how many single barrels I will get next year. And so, for my Atma program and also for key distributors and retailers. So like I said, this year we have the retailers going from, the distributors going from California, Texas, Georgia, New Jersey, and DC. And each of them will get a barrel.
I mean, I consider
Raj.
Paul technically Chicagoan, so I hope his affinity lies with Chicago.
A good introduction to Utah. You could do a single barrel.
There you go.
go.
All right. I will. We're working on Utah, as I said. So.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Good introduction to it.
Good to see everybody.
All right. Thanks,
Yeah,
Paul.
Hey, Paul, it was an honor to be on stream with you.
Lovely to see everyone. Let's do this again.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thanks, Paul. Thanks, everybody.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
All right.